On this week's FAS TV, we are at Titaboutie Farm in Aberdeenshire, a demo farm testing ready-for-market AgriTech as part of the Opportunity Northeast project involving SAC Consulting. Titaboutie is an upland rearer finisher farm with a herd of 140 autumn calving cows, flock of 700 ewes, forage crops and some arable cropping. We hear from Peter Cook from Opportunity Northeast, who discusses the aims and objectives of the project. And we learn how Dan Robertson and his father Andrew have integrated data collection into their everyday farming activities through EID cattle and sheep tagging and use of their Combi-Clamp to better improve their business efficiency.
I'm Peter Cook. I'm the lead from Opportunity Northeast on AgriTech and supply chain. So we're here today at Titaboutie Farm at Tarland. This is one of the livestock demo farms for the One AgriTech Demo Farm project. I mean, this project is about testing ready for market technology, AgriTech, on real farms to get real experience on how it works in fairly tough farming conditions. And then learning the lessons from that and getting it out to as many other farmers and people in the industry as possible. One's a funny thing, so we're a privately funded economic development organisation, and we're trying to grow the economy of North East Scotland beyond oil and gas. And the food and drink sector is a really big sector in the North East and indeed in Scotland. And we need a strong agricultural industry that keeps supplying the raw materials and indeed grows. You know, we all know what the challenges are in farming: fewer people, people trying to do more and having more responsibilities on individuals. And we believe that technology is one of the ways to improve productivity per person. So more output per person, while still maintaining a decent way of life for the people and welfare and the performance of the individual animals. So Titaboutie is the livestock demo farm for this project. And the Robertsons here have been a tremendous asset to the project. They have a real interest in innovation. It's a typical northeast mixed livestock farm, so you've got cattle and sheep here and crops in a range of conditions. So if you wanted to test technology, it's got all the range of indoor and outdoor situations to do that. And it would be true to say that the family here have a bit of expertise and enthusiasm to try that and to put those messages across to the industry. Opportunity Northeast, we always work in partnership. So in terms of funding the project, this is jointly funded with the Scotland Food and Drink Supply Chain Project and also some help from Aberdeenshire Council. It's delivered by SAC and SAOS. Those organisations have got the contacts and the links into the industry and the expertise to bring to the project to help the family here implement the technology as successfully as possible. I suppose it's important to think about where the information is that's been gathered across the project. So there's a website for the project, and as technology has been tested, evaluation forms have been created for that technology, so they all sit there. We've had open meetings and webinars. The results from those are sitting on the website as well. There's a community group that's been developed over the length of the project. About 380 people, businesses have signed up for that, and they've received newsletters. Once again, they're all on the website, and that information's all there. So that's sitting there as a sort of legacy for the project to show what's been tried, what the pluses and minuses are in practical situations, and what we're doing today, of course, is another piece of legacy that will show what the impact has been on this mixed livestock business in Aberdeenshire. I think it's critically important. Okay, there's lots of other things that are going to drive and shape the industry, but the key thing is we have very few people trying to manage lots of individual animals and acres. And Technology, I think, is the way we're going to be able to keep a high level of performance per animal with few people involved. So I think it's absolutely critical, and we have to have that productivity per person. I think technology that can monitor individual livestock remotely, that can give us the data to improve performance and select animals correctly, all of that's going to be absolutely critical for the future. The Robertson family have been exceptionally good. You'll be hearing from Dan in a minute. And Dan has worked in this whole field of technology in the past, so he's got a very good basic understanding anyway. And that's been really fantastic for the project. He's been able to talk very authoritatively about different types of technology, and it can be baffling when you get into the digital side of technology. So being able to take that from that theoretical sort of level down to the practical level, really important. So the family here have been absolute stars within the project. So it really has made the livestock side of this project work.
My name is Dan Robertson. This is Titaboutie Farm on the McRobert Trust Estate. Here we farm over around 400 hectares. We have 140 suckler cows, which are a mixture of Aberdeen Angus and Simmental. We're on a flock of about 700 ewes using Innovis genetics, so they're a mixture of Highlander and Aberfields. On both enterprises on this farm, we breed all of our own replacements and we finish everything on farm. So we do both enterprises from start to finish. On top of that, we do about 80 hectares of combinable crops. So we do a mixture of winter wheat, we're doing some winter barley and predominantly spring barley. We use a lot of that we use our own straw, we feed our own barley as much as we can. So yeah, we try and make sure that the three enterprises work well together. So it's me, my father Andrew, and we've got a worker Michael. So the three of us work together on the farm here. So I came back to the farm about 4 years ago, just 4.5 years ago. I'd spent 10 years away down in England and various countries. I went down and did a degree in engineering at Harper Adams. Subsequent to that, I travelled a bit and ended up working for an innovation centre and then a couple of startups. So I spent about 5 years working in the AgTech sector. And then after that, I made the decision to come home. And so now I'm sort of trying to apply some of the stuff I've learned and obviously all the stuff I learned growing up on the farm here at home. So my dad was always quite up to date with technology. We were very early with EID tagging on the cattle. Some of the stuff I've implemented, we've already been EID tagging on cattle and sheep, but we've just been looking at capturing more data earlier with the EID tagging. So we've started tagging lambs at birth, recording their mothers, and that way we get their lifetime growth rates, we get their 8-week weights, it's better for selecting maternal traits on our ewes, because obviously the selection of our ewes and our heifers is really important in a farm where we're breeding all of our own replacements. We've also looked at a number of different technologies. One of the things is the smart bell tags that you see on the calves here. So this is a tag that monitors the activity and the ear temperature of the calves. And what it does is it gives us alerts if there's any calves that are maybe having temperature problems or they're a bit lethargic, and it just helps to give us the sort of confidence we need to when we're intervening with antibiotics or we're dealing with problems with the calves. So when I was looking at technology to bring into the farm, it was very important that we started off by looking at problems that we have on the farm and efficiency issues that we have on the farm. So we're actually an all-autumn calving herd. There's a lot of pressure on the system at this time of year, and that's why we identified the smart bell tags as giving us an advantage to, maximising calf health at this time of year is really important to sort of lifetime performance of our cattle. The integration of the technology into your farm is super important, because investing in technology that doesn't work for your system, you're just going to end up wasting time trying to make it fit. So a lot of the stuff that we've looked at has been either addressing direct problems that we have or identifying ways where we can integrate data collection into sort of everyday activities that we do. So things like the Combi-Clamp, we've invested heavily in that, and that means that we can capture data on our sheep every time we handle them. So we're not going out specifically to collect data, it's just when we're worming them or when we're handling them, we have the weigh cells and we have the EID reading, so we can just collect data and monitor them just in everyday tasks. But with the data, it can be quite easy to get sort of overwhelmed by, you can collect a lot of data quite quickly these days. So what I've been trying to do is been trying to streamline how I'm using this data. So the main use of the data is for maternal selection. So when I'm selecting which ewes are in my A flock, which are going to go onto maternal rams, and which ewes are in my B flock, which are going to go on terminal sires, I'm making that decision based off of data I've collected over the year. So the most important data for me is her traits at lambing time. So when I'm tagging the lambs, I'm recording whether or not she was a good mother, had milk, etc. Was she giving me any problems at lambing time, because that's a real pinch point in the enterprise. And then second to that is the performance of her lamb going forward, because the performance of her lamb is really the thing we're looking at. We want growth rates, we want efficiency. So by combining those two factors is how I make the decision. I think the key to this is actually simplifying the decision, not trying to analyze every single thing about the yow. It's more important that you find a couple of really powerful factors and focus on them, because I think you'll get most of the benefit there, just focusing on a couple of traits. The tech, it's really helped us. So we've made the transition into all of autumn calving, which I think is going to be great for the efficiency of the business, and the tech's really helped us to implement that. There's been a lot of pressure with pushing the cattle into the autumn calving, and we've had a few issues with a new strain of pneumonia that's arrived on the farm. So dealing with the pressures that come with these sort of issues that you're going to face as a cattle farmer. Any information you can get that's going to help you with your calf health is really vital, because it's helped us with reducing our antibiotic use, and also making sure that if we are using antibiotics, we're using them more timely so they're more effective. It's very rare now that we have to treat a calf for pneumonia multiple times. Normally we catch it earlier now, so that it's just one time. And with the sheep, so since we've been collecting all this data with the Combi-Clamp, and since we've been tagging at birth, collecting data on sheep has become totally effortless. So we have multiple weights for every lamb, we have records of every intervention in terms of injections and stuff. So actually the biggest difference for us is that if we want to make decisions about traits that we want to get rid of or traits that we want to encourage, the data's there, and actually analysing it is very easy. It's all there without having to go out, and especially with the weights, when we're looking at growing lambs, it's very easy because we're handling them the same way. We don't have to go out specifically to weigh them, we just weigh them whenever we're treating them anyway. So the reason we changed to autumn calving is we did a bit of work where we looked at the financial performance of our two herds. We used to run a spring herd and an autumn herd. For whatever reason on our farm, our autumn herd always outperforms the spring herd in terms of financial performance. We were very keen to move to one block of calving, just because we were calving for too many months of the year, but having two blocks and having a tail on each block. And then combined with the fact that we're lambing in spring, we're getting ready to sow crops in spring, we thought actually autumn calving makes a lot of sense for us. Another factor as well was that our ground's not great for outwintering. So we end up housing most of our cows for most of the winter anyway. So then again, if they're inside, they might as well be working a bit harder. So yeah, we get better growth rates on the autumn herds. It also means we can wean the calves at 10 or 11 months, which I think reduces the stress on the calves. I think it maximises the growth rates. It means that the cows that are on our farm are working for most of the year pretty hard. We're getting the most out of them. But yeah, a lot of it was just to do with the business efficiency, was just to do with giving ourselves a bit more time in the spring. So now it means in the autumn time we focus hard on the calves, and in the springtime we focus hard on the lambs, and it means that we get the better out of both the enterprises. So yeah, one of the first things installed as part of the project was the LoRaWAN network, which covers all of the farm. So it's basically a sort of low power, long range Wi-Fi, which means that you can have sensors out in the field. You can put a AA battery in them and they'll last for 3 years, 5 years sometimes. So when that was installed, one of the first things we got some soil sensors, soil temperature sensors out on the different parts of the farm. And that was actually really useful because it gave us the confidence in the springtime to go on a lot earlier with the fertilizer. We found that, we'd been putting it off because we were making excuses about the temperature of the soil, but when you could actually see where the soil temperature was, you could go on with a bit more confidence. So we put on our fertilizer, I think 4 or 5 weeks earlier in our first year using the sensors, and since then it's kind of helped us to change our approach to early springtime fertilizer. We also have sort of water monitoring, we have environment monitoring in some of the calf sheds, and another really useful one was the grain probes. So again, they've just got a little battery in them, there's no wires, there's no need for a dedicated app, you just stick it into the pile of grain and it appears on the dashboard. So that was also really useful in our first harvest with the LoRaWAN, because it meant that we could monitor some of our wet grain piles and make sure that we weren't having any issues with heating, and if we were having issues with heating, we knew about it straight away. Yeah, so we have a dashboard that you can get on your phone or on your computer, and the whole idea with the Smart Rural system is that they can have a variety of sensors from different manufacturers, and it will all go to the same dashboard, so you don't need a dedicated platform for each different sensor, so that was quite useful. One of the second things that turned up was the beef monitor from Ritchie. The beef monitor is obviously, it weighs the feeding cattle. They have a water trough at the front of the beef monitor, so they climb on to get their water, and all the weights are captured through their EID tags and is uploaded to the dashboard. We realised actually that every time you handle the cattle, it really affects their growth rates. So this allows us to keep track closely of the performance of our feeding cattle without handling. We found that when you're weighing cattle, you get huge variations in terms of gut fill, so you can have up to 20 kilograms difference based on if they've just eaten or they haven't eaten. But the great thing about the beef monitor is you get sort of 5 or 6, sometimes more weights a day, so you get a really good average of where that beast is and how it's performing. Yeah, it's been really useful because when we're looking to finish cattle, keeping an eye on how heavy they're getting and how they're growing is really important, because once you start getting oversized carcasses, you're basically paying money on an animal that you're not going to get any benefit from. So in terms of an efficiency saving, it's been great. So one of the next things that came was some accessories for our Combi-Clamp. So we already had a Combi-Clamp with weigh cells that we'd been using, but we found it maybe a little bit difficult, a little bit harder to set up. So one of the things we invested in was the portable trailer for it that you can just arrive at and drop it down, and you're working with the sheep within about 2 minutes. And the other thing we got was the auto drafter for sorting out lambs or ewes by weight. So now we had basically a full system where we could do more or less everything through the Combi-Clamp. We could arrive at a farm and be ready to work within a couple of minutes. And actually that sort of making it easier to use the Combi-Clamp unlocked the potential of it. It means that it made it possible for us now to do everything through the Combi-Clamp, and doing everything through the Combi-Clamp is what's made the sort of regularity of the data collection much easier. And I think it's really important that the tech that you invest in is convenient, and I think if it's not convenient, you might find it difficult to do it one day, and then you might not do it another day, and then before you know it, you've just stopped using that piece of technology, or you've stopped collecting that data. And I think making it very easy for yourself is absolutely paramount. So another bit of tech that we invested in was the Titaboutie automatic drenching gun. So what this does is you can use it for pour-on worming for cattle, you can use it for drenching ewes, sheep. It's got different size application vessels and different nozzles to go on it. So basically what it does is it works in conjunction with our weigh cells and our EID reader. What it'll do is it will adjust the worming dose or the pour-on dose based on the weight of the animal. So what this does is it just means that you're being absolutely accurate with your dose rates, because it's very easy to just say they're all this weight or that weight, and what that ends up with is you're overdosing or you're underdosing some. Obviously underdosing really bad for breeding resistance in these things, which is obviously a really big issue we're all facing at the moment. And overdosing can affect their performance subsequent to the dose. So it's one of those things where you don't necessarily see the benefit but I like to think that it is one of those sort of small improvements that's happening in the background. And I think one of the things I've learned farming over the last few years is that it's all about getting all the little things right. And I think making sure your worming doses are accurate is going to pay dividends in the long run. The equipment is well made. You have to make sure that you keep it very clean. You can have problems with wormers damaging seals. You know, some of the wormers are quite abrasive to these things, so you have got to be careful with how you look after it. But yeah, generally it's been a good bit of kit for the farm. So on the farm we've started using the scour checker from MSD, and what it is it's like it's a lateral flow test, like a COVID test, and it will. So you take a sample of scour, you put it into the tube, you screw it shut, and then it will test for rotavirus, coronavirus, E. coli, and cryptosporidium. And the reason this is important is that, like I've said, we've got a lot of young calves inside, so if you have an outbreak of scour, it can be very problematic when you have so many young calves inside. And what this does is, as soon as we see the first signs of scour, we can identify what the cause of the scour is, and we can treat that effectively. Because of course, if you're looking at a virus scour, or you're looking at a bacterial scour, or you're looking at a crypto scour, the treatments that are the most effective for those and the preventions that are most effective for those are very different. So finding out exactly what you're dealing with as quickly as possible is paramount to actually nipping the problem in the bud and, you know, not letting it affect more than a handful of calves. We work very closely with our vets, so if we have any, you know, with the scour check and stuff, if we get a positive for rotavirus or we get a positive for cryptosporidium or whatever it is, we work very close to our vets and we say, look, we're facing this problem with this number of calves at this age, and then we are able to formulate a plan very quickly. And I think that's one of those places where knowing what you're dealing with as quickly as possible is what is the most important, because you don't want to be dealing with a problem, you actually want to be preventing a problem. So if you can identify it when you have one calf with a problem and not start dealing with it when you have 20 calves with a problem, that's going to make a huge difference to your performance. Because, you know, even if they all recover, some of these viruses or some of these problems can cause lasting, you know, growth penalties for these calves. So in terms of the efficiency of the business, the faster you can deal with any health problems you have is really important. It's actually been great to be part of a project like this. You know, sometimes I'm speaking at events where I feel like everyone else knows more about what I'm talking about than I do. But actually, it's put me out of my comfort zone. It's pushed me to look at the business and look at what tech we could invest in, and it's given me a chance to speak to so many interesting people, speak to so many different companies that are offering new technology. And you know, when we started, I think there was definitely the feeling that beef and sheep were falling behind in terms of how much tech there was, but I feel like now, a couple of years on, there's a lot more technology available now, and there's a lot more people investing in it. So I think it's been a really good time to be involved in a project like this, because it's sort of given us the confidence to sort of jump into some of these technologies that have actually ended up making a real difference on our farm. And it's also nice to get the chance to speak with other people, to get people out to the farm and to sort of share in the knowledge that we've learned, and sharing the challenges, and just sharing the general experience. Because I always think that as farmers, quite rightly, we don't always take marketing at face value. We like to speak with our peers. We like to speak with people who have actually, you know, on commercial farms have tried it and seen how it gets on. Because I think that's the most important way for having the confidence to invest in tech is speaking with peers that have already done it. The next 10 years at Titaboutie, I think, is a lot to do with consolidation of what we've moved a lot in the last few years. We've got a lot of different data streams. We've changed the way the business operates a little bit. And I think now my focus is on sort of dialing in exactly how I'm using this data, focusing on implementing all the sort of things, all the learnings we've had over the years, making sure any little niggles with technology are ironed out. And yeah, my focus in the next 10 years is sort of to knuckle down and to see, I'm already starting to see incremental improvements. I'm definitely starting to see some improvements in my sheep flock in terms of maternal selection. I'm starting to find that my A flock are massively outperforming my B flock, and that's only going to help me down the line. So yeah, the the sort of focus over the next 10 years is about sort of taking stock and consolidating. I think, I wouldn't say we're finished investing in tech, but I feel like we have got a lot of our bases covered now in terms of the technology that we're going to invest in. So yeah, taking the learnings and working hard, I think, is the next 10 years.
So why is AgriTech important for the future industry? And I suppose there are three key areas. The first is that productivity per person. If you're going to have enough margin per person to maintain the industry and grow this sector and keep that critical supply for the food and drink sector in Scotland, then we need these new tools that allow few people to manage lots of livestock, for example, without sacrificing performance and maintaining good levels of welfare and meeting the kind of wider targets on emissions that are important as well. The second thing is, part of achieving that is we need data. We need to be able to measure individual animals without being too intrusive. And the digital technologies that are available are going to allow us to do that. And that will give us the information to manage individual animals better, even although we have fewer people. And if you have data and you can measure, you can improve. And I suppose the third thing is that technology will make people's lives better in the industry. I think it'll attract young people because they're used to that technology, and it'll broaden out the skills that are required in the industry, and more people will be attracted to it because you're going to need digital skills, software understanding, how to use these tools in practical situations. So I think it'll be important for bringing that next generation in, maintaining that interest and giving them a kind of lifestyle that's acceptable as well.